where the mighty Nile River flows with the rhythm of eternity itself. In this timeless realm, where the sun god Ra travels across endless blue skies each day, we find ourselves transported to an era when pharaohs walked as living gods among mortals, their lives intertwined with the sacred mysteries that govern both heaven and earth. Picture, if you will, the Egypt of 4,000 years ago, during the golden age of the Middle Kingdom, around 2000 BCE. The landscape is both harsh and beautiful, a land of stark contrasts where the fertile green strip along the Nile gives way to endless golden deserts that stretch beyond the horizon. The river itself is the lifeblood of this civilization, rising and falling with predictable precision, bringing rich black soil that makes the valley bloom with life each year. In this ancient world, time moves differently than it does today. There are no clocks ticking away the hours, no rushing schedules or urgent appointments. Life flows with the rhythm of the seasons, the flooding of the Nile, and the eternal journey of the sun across the sky. The people of Egypt understand that they are part of something much larger than themselves, connected to the gods, to the land, and to the cosmic order that keeps the world in perfect balance. The cities of this ancient land are marvels of human achievement, yet they feel organic, as if they grew naturally from the earth itself. Memphis, the great capital, sits at the junction of Upper and Lower Egypt like a jewel beside the Nile. Its white limestone walls gleam in the morning sun, while palm trees sway gently in the breeze that carries the scent of incense and lotus blossoms. The city hums with quiet activity as people go about their daily lives, but there is no sense of urgency, no harsh sounds of modern machinery. Instead, there is the gentle lapping of water against papyrus boats, the soft voices of merchants calling their wares, and the distant sound of workers singing as they labor. Within this serene landscape stands the palace complex, a magnificent structure that seems to bridge the world of mortals and gods. Built of gleaming white limestone and decorated with intricate hieroglyphs painted in brilliant blues, reds, and golds, the palace is not merely a residence but a sacred space where the divine pharaoh maintains the cosmic order. The architecture itself tells stories, with every column, every painted scene, every carefully placed stone serving a purpose beyond mere beauty. The palace gardens are oases of tranquility, with reflecting pools that mirror the sky and date palms that provide cooling shade. Lotus flowers float serenely on the water's surface, their petals opening and closing with the rhythm of day and night. The air is perfumed with frankincense and myrrh, precious resins that were worth their weight in gold, creating an atmosphere of sacred peace that permeates every corner of the royal residence. As we approach this ancient world, we must understand that the role of a pharaoh was unlike any modern concept of leadership. The pharaoh was not simply a king or ruler in the way we might imagine today. Instead, the pharaoh was the living embodiment of the god Horus, the divine falcon who soared between earth and sky. This was not merely a title or a political position, but a sacred responsibility that touched every aspect of existence. The Egyptian understanding of divine kingship was deeply spiritual and profoundly comforting. The pharaoh served as the intermediary between the mortal world and the realm of the gods, ensuring that Ma'at, the principle of truth, justice, and cosmic order, was maintained throughout the land. This concept of Ma'at was central to Egyptian civilization, representing the delicate balance that kept chaos at bay and allowed life to flourish in harmony. In the daily life of ancient Egypt, people understood their place in this cosmic order. Farmers worked their fields knowing that their labor was blessed by the gods. Craftsmen created beautiful objects not merely for decoration, but as offerings to the divine. Scribes recorded the stories and laws that preserved the wisdom of the ages. Everyone, from the highest noble to the humblest worker, participated in maintaining the sacred balance that kept their world functioning in perfect harmony. The climate of ancient Egypt adds to the sense of timeless serenity. The desert heat of the day gives way to cool, peaceful nights where the stars shine with brilliant clarity in the unpolluted sky. The dry air preserves everything it touches, creating a sense of permanence and eternity that permeates the entire civilization. Nothing rots or decays quickly in this climate, instead, everything seems touched by the hand of eternity itself. The sounds of this ancient world are soothing and natural. There are no mechanical noises, no engines or machines. Instead, there is the gentle whisper of wind through palm fronds, the soft splash of water as boats move along the Nile, the distant lowing of cattle being led to water, and the rhythmic sounds of workers going about their tasks with unhurried precision. Even the busy marketplace has a peaceful quality, with voices that rise and fall like gentle music rather than harsh shouting. The Egyptian people themselves move through their world with a grace and dignity that speaks to their deep connection with the divine order. They understand that their pharaoh is more than a ruler, he is their connection to the gods, their protector, and their guide through the mysteries of existence. This creates a sense of security and belonging that permeates every aspect of life, from the grandest temple ceremony to the simplest daily task. As we prepare to enter the sacred space of the pharaoh's world, we find ourselves in a realm where the spiritual and physical merge seamlessly. The very stones of the palace seem to pulse with ancient wisdom, and the air itself feels charged with the presence of the divine. This is not a world of harsh realities or disturbing truths, but rather a place where every moment is touched by the sacred, where beauty and meaning infuse even the most mundane activities. The approaching evening brings with it a sense of peaceful anticipation, as if the entire land is preparing for a sacred ritual. The sun begins its journey toward the western horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson that reflect off the Nile's surface like scattered jewels. Birds return to their roosts in the papyrus marshes, their calls creating a natural symphony that seems to praise the dying light of day. As twilight descends upon the ancient land of Egypt, we find ourselves approaching the magnificent palace complex where the divine pharaoh resides. The journey toward this sacred space is itself a meditation, a gradual transition from the everyday world into a realm where the divine and mortal intersect in perfect harmony. The path we follow has been walked by countless pilgrims, courtiers, and visitors over the centuries, each footstep adding to the accumulated sanctity of this approach. The avenue leading to the palace is lined with sphinx statues, their serene faces gazing eternally toward the setting sun. These guardians, carved from pink granite quarried far to the south, stand as silent sentinels who have watched over this sacred space for generations. Their expressions are neither stern nor forbidding, but rather peaceful and protective, like benevolent ancestors keeping watch over their descendants. Each sphinx is unique, carved by master craftsmen who understood that they were creating not mere decorations, but sacred beings who would participate in the divine protection of the pharaoh. The stone beneath our feet is worn smooth by countless passages, yet it feels warm and welcoming rather than cold or harsh. This limestone, quarried from the nearby hills, has been carefully fitted together with such precision that barely a blade of grass could slip between the joints. The ancient builders understood that perfection in construction was itself a form of worship, a way of honoring the divine order that governed all things. As we walk along this sacred avenue, the sounds of the outside world gradually fade away, replaced by the gentle whisper of evening breezes through the palm fronds and the distant sound of temple chants carried on the air. The atmosphere grows increasingly peaceful with each step, as if the very ground we walk upon has been blessed by centuries of sacred presence. The air itself seems to shimmer with an otherworldly quality, perfumed with lotus blossoms and frankincense that drift from the palace courtyards ahead. On either side of the processional way, carefully tended gardens stretch toward the horizon, their design reflecting the Egyptian understanding of paradise. These are not wild spaces, but carefully ordered reflections of the cosmic harmony that the pharaoh maintains. Date palms provide cooling shade, their fronds rustling softly in the breeze like whispered prayers. Beneath them, smaller plants create patterns that mirror the stars in the night sky, turning the very landscape into a kind of earthly constellation. Reflecting pools dot the gardens at regular intervals, their still surfaces acting as mirrors for the sky above. Lotus flowers float serenely on these pools, their petals opening and closing in rhythm with the cycle of day and night. These flowers are not merely decorative, they are sacred symbols of rebirth and renewal, representing the eternal cycle of death and resurrection that governs all life in Egypt. The sight of them floating peacefully on the dark water creates a sense of profound tranquility, as if time itself has slowed to match their gentle rhythm. As we continue our approach, the first structures of the palace complex come into view, and they are breathtaking in their serene majesty. Unlike the imposing fortresses that other civilizations might build to demonstrate power, the Egyptian palace seems to grow organically from the landscape itself. The walls are not harsh barriers but gentle boundaries that separate the sacred space from the everyday world without creating a sense of exclusion or fear. The outer walls of the complex are decorated with painted reliefs that tell the story of Egypt's glory, but these are not scenes of conquest or violence. Instead, they depict the pharaoh in his role as the maintainer of cosmic order, receiving the blessing of the gods, overseeing the prosperity of his people, and ensuring that the Nile continues its life-giving flood each year. The colors used in these paintings are soft and harmonious, blues and golds that seem to capture the very essence of the Egyptian sky and sun. Guards stand at the palace gates, but they are not stern-faced warriors. Instead, they are priest-soldiers, men who understand that their duty is not merely to protect the pharaoh's physical safety, but to maintain the sacred boundaries that preserve the cosmic order. They wear white linen robes that flutter gently in the evening breeze, and their presence adds to the sense of peace rather than creating any feeling of threat or danger. The gates themselves are works of art, crafted from cedar wood imported from the distant mountains of Lebanon and decorated with gold and ivory inlays that catch the last rays of the setting sun. These doors are not merely functional barriers but sacred portals that mark the transition from the outer world into the divine presence of the pharaoh. The very act of passing through them is a form of purification, a shedding of worldly concerns in preparation for encounter with the divine. As we approach these magnificent gates, we can hear the soft sound of water flowing through hidden channels built into the palace walls. This is not mere decoration but a carefully engineered system that brings the life-giving waters of the Nile into every corner of the palace complex. The sound of this flowing water creates a constant, soothing background music that seems to echo the eternal flow of time itself. It reminds all who hear it that life in Egypt depends upon the blessing of the river, and that the pharaoh, as the earthly representative of the gods, ensures that these blessings continue to flow. The shadows are growing longer now as the sun sinks lower toward the western horizon, and the entire palace complex seems to glow with an inner light. This is not the harsh illumination of artificial lighting, but the soft, golden radiance that comes from torch flames and oil lamps carefully placed throughout the courtyards and corridors. The flickering of these flames creates patterns of light and shadow that dance across the painted walls, bringing the hieroglyphic stories to life in a gentle, mesmerizing display. Musicians stationed in hidden alcoves add their voices to the evening symphony, playing harps and flutes whose melodies seem to float on the air like incense. These are not performances in the modern sense, but rather sacred offerings of sound that help to maintain the peaceful atmosphere of the palace. The music is simple and repetitive, designed not to entertain or excite, but to soothe and calm, creating an auditory environment that encourages contemplation and inner peace. The air around the palace carries scents that speak of luxury and sanctity combined. There is the clean, fresh smell of water from the fountains, the sweet fragrance of lotus blossoms, the warm, resinous aroma of frankincense and myrrh, and underneath it all, the subtle scent of cedar and fine linens that speaks of the pharaoh's earthly magnificence. These fragrances blend together to create an olfactory experience that is both grounding and uplifting, connecting the physical senses to the spiritual reality of the sacred space. As we pause at the threshold of the palace gates, we take a moment to appreciate the careful thought that has gone into every aspect of this approach. Nothing here is accidental or merely functional. Every element, from the placement of the Sphinx statues to the sound of the hidden water channels, has been designed to create a sense of gradually increasing sanctity, a natural progression from the everyday world into the presence of the divine pharaoh. The guards nod respectfully as we approach, their movements slow and ceremonial rather than quick or military. They understand that all who approach the palace with pure intentions are welcome, for the pharaoh exists not as a distant tyrant but as a loving father to his people, always available to those who seek his wisdom and protection. Their gesture of acknowledgement is itself a blessing, a recognition that we have been found worthy to enter this sacred space. The last rays of the setting sun illuminate the golden caps of the obelisks that rise above the palace walls, their pointed tips seeming to touch the first stars that are beginning to appear in the darkening sky. These monuments, carved from single blocks of granite and transported hundreds of miles from the quarries in the south, stand as eternal prayers offered up to the gods, their hieroglyphic inscriptions proclaiming the pharaoh's divine mission for all eternity to see. The massive cedar gates swing open with surprising silence, their well-oiled hinges moving without the slightest creak or groan, as if they are floating rather than turning. This smooth, effortless motion speaks to the incredible craftsmanship of the Egyptian artisans who created them, but it also creates a sense of supernatural ease, as if the very palace itself is welcoming us into its sacred embrace. The moment we step across the threshold, we enter a different world entirely, one where every sight, sound, and sensation has been carefully orchestrated to create an atmosphere of divine peace. The first courtyard that greets us is a marvel of architectural harmony, its proportions calculated not merely for aesthetic beauty but to create a sense of cosmic balance that reflects the order of the universe itself. The rectangular space is surrounded by columns that rise like stone trees toward the star-filled sky, their capitals carved in the shape of lotus blossoms and papyrus flowers that seem to sway gently in the evening breeze despite being carved from solid granite. These columns are painted in soft colors that seem to glow in the lamplight, blues that capture the essence of the Nile, golds that reflect the sun's radiance, and whites that speak of purity and divine presence. Between the columns, oil lamps hang from bronze chains, their flames dancing gently in the night air and casting patterns of light and shadow that transform the painted walls into a living tapestry. The scenes depicted on these walls are not static pictures but seem to move and breathe in the flickering light, showing the pharaoh in various aspects of his divine role, receiving the blessing of the gods, overseeing the prosperity of his people, and maintaining the cosmic order that keeps chaos at bay. The floor of the courtyard is a masterpiece of inlaid stonework, with patterns that mirror the constellations in the night sky above. Different colored stones have been carefully fitted together to create a map of the heavens underfoot, reminding all who walk here that the pharaoh's domain extends from the earth to the stars themselves. The stones have been polished to a smooth finish that feels warm and welcoming beneath our feet, as if they have absorbed the sun's warmth during the day and are now releasing it slowly into the cool night air. In the center of the courtyard stands a fountain whose design embodies the Egyptian understanding of the sacred nature of water. The fountain itself is carved from a single block of black granite, its surface polished to mirror brightness that reflects the stars above. Water flows from hidden channels within the stone, emerging in gentle streams that create a soft, musical sound as they fall into the circular pool below. The water is kept in constant motion by this flow, preventing stagnation while creating a hypnotic, rhythmic sound that seems to match the heartbeat of the earth itself. Around the edge of the fountain pool, lotus flowers float in carefully arranged patterns, their petals opening and closing in response to the warmth of the nearby oil lamps. These flowers are not merely decorative but serve as living symbols of the eternal cycle of death and rebirth that governs all existence. The sight of them floating peacefully on the dark water creates a meditative focus that draws the eye and calms the mind, encouraging contemplation of the deeper mysteries of life. Surrounding the fountain, low stone benches provide places for quiet contemplation, their surfaces cushioned with soft linen pillows that invite rest and reflection. These benches are positioned to provide perfect views of both the fountain and the painted walls, creating intimate spaces for meditation within the larger grandeur of the courtyard. The cushions themselves are works of art, woven with patterns that incorporate sacred symbols and dyed with colors that complement the overall harmony of the space. As we move deeper into the courtyard, we become aware of the subtle presence of others who share this sacred space. Palace servants move silently through the shadows, their white linen robes making them seem almost ghost-like as they tend to the oil lamps and maintain the perfect order of the courtyard. These are not ordinary servants but sacred attendants who understand that their work is itself a form of worship, a way of participating in the maintenance of cosmic order that is the pharaoh's primary responsibility. Priests can be seen in the distance, moving slowly through covered walkways that connect different parts of the palace complex. They carry incense burners that release fragrant smoke into the night air, the sweet aroma of frankincense and myrrh adding another layer to the multisensory experience of the palace. Their chanting, soft and rhythmic, drifts across the courtyard like an audible prayer, creating a constant background of sacred sound that enhances the peaceful atmosphere. The architecture of the palace reveals itself gradually as we explore the courtyard, each detail adding to our understanding of the sophisticated civilization that created this magnificent space. The Egyptians understood that buildings are not merely functional structures but living environments that can either enhance or diminish the human spirit. Every element of this palace has been designed to uplift and inspire, to create a physical manifestation of the divine order that the pharaoh represents. The walls that surround the courtyard are thick and substantial, but they do not feel oppressive or confining. Instead, they create a sense of protection and security, like the loving embrace of a parent sheltering a child. The stone used in their construction has been carefully selected not only for its structural properties but for its aesthetic qualities as well. The limestone has a warm, honey-colored tone that seems to glow with inner light, while the granite accents provide contrast and visual interest without disrupting the overall harmony of the design. Doorways and passages lead off from the main courtyard, each one carefully proportioned and beautifully decorated. These openings do not feel like barriers or obstacles but rather like invitations to explore deeper into the sacred mysteries of the palace. The lintels above each doorway are carved with hieroglyphs that serve both decorative and protective functions, ensuring that only positive energies can pass through these sacred portals. The ceiling above the courtyard is the night sky itself, unobstructed by any roof or covering. This open design reflects the Egyptian understanding that the divine pharaoh must maintain connection with the cosmic forces that govern the universe. The stars that shine down into the courtyard are the same stars that guided the ancient Egyptians in their navigation of both physical and spiritual journeys, and their presence here creates a sense of infinite space and eternal time. As we settle into the peaceful rhythm of the courtyard, we begin to notice the subtle ways in which the space affects our own inner state. The constant, gentle sound of the fountain creates a natural focus for meditation, while the soft illumination from the oil lamps provides just enough light to see without being harsh or disturbing. The temperature is perfect, cooled by the flow of water and the stone surfaces that release the day's accumulated warmth slowly into the night air. Garden spaces within the courtyard provide touches of living green that soften the stone architecture and connect the space to the natural world. Palm trees grow in carefully placed planters, their fronds providing gentle movement and soft sound as they sway in the evening breeze. Smaller plants, chosen for their fragrance as well as their beauty, fill the air with subtle perfumes that enhance the overall sensory experience of the space. The overall effect of the courtyard is one of profound peace and spiritual elevation. This is not a space designed for hurried passage or casual gathering, but rather a sacred environment created for contemplation and communion with the divine. Every element works together to create an atmosphere that naturally slows the pace of thought and breath, encouraging a state of inner calm that prepares the spirit for deeper spiritual experiences. As we prepare to move deeper into the palace complex, we carry with us the sense of peace and sanctity that this courtyard has instilled. The transition from the outer world to this sacred space has been gradual and natural, allowing us to adjust slowly to the rarefied atmosphere of divine presence that permeates every corner of the pharaoh's domain. Beyond the main courtyard, a corridor lined with painted columns leads us deeper into the heart of the palace complex, towards spaces reserved for the most sacred activities of royal life. The passage itself is a work of art, its walls decorated with scenes that tell the story of the pharaoh's divine mission in exquisite detail. Unlike the public areas we have just left, this corridor feels more intimate, more personal, as if we are being trusted with glimpses into the private spiritual life of the divine ruler. The paintings that adorn these walls are masterpieces of ancient artistry, created by the finest artists in all of Egypt working under the guidance of master priests who understood the spiritual significance of every image. The colors used here are even more refined than those in the outer courtyards, with precious pigments that seem to glow with their own inner light. Lapis lazuli blue, ground from stones imported from distant Afghanistan, creates skies that rival the heavens themselves. Gold leaf, applied with techniques passed down through generations of craftsmen, catches and reflects the lamplight in ways that make the figures seem to move and breathe. The scenes depicted here are deeply spiritual, showing the pharaoh not in the regalia of earthly power but in the simple white linen of sacred purity. We see him performing the daily rituals that maintain cosmic order, offering prayers to the gods, and receiving divine guidance for the governance of his people. These are not public ceremonies but private moments of communion between the pharaoh and the divine forces that guide his reign, intimate glimpses into the spiritual foundation upon which all Egyptian civilization rests. As we move through this corridor, the sound of our footsteps is muffled by woven reed mats that cover the stone floor, their natural fibers creating a soft, organic texture that connects us to the living world even within these stone walls. The mats themselves are works of art, woven with patterns that incorporate sacred symbols and dyed with natural colors that complement the painted walls. They provide both practical comfort and spiritual significance, reminding us that even the humblest materials can be transformed into objects of beauty and meaning. The oil lamps that illuminate this corridor are smaller and more refined than those in the public spaces, their flames enclosed in alabaster shades that diffuse the light into a soft, golden glow that seems almost supernatural. These lamps are positioned to highlight specific elements of the wall paintings, creating pools of light that draw the eye to particular scenes and invite contemplation of their deeper meanings. The effect is not unlike walking through a gallery of sacred art, where each image is presented as a meditation on the divine nature of kingship. At the end of the corridor, we arrive at a doorway that is clearly different from those we have passed before. This entrance is smaller, more intimate, marked not by grandeur but by the subtle perfection of its proportions and the exquisite quality of its decoration. The door itself is made of ebony wood, its dark surface inlaid with ivory and gold and patterns that represent the union of earth and heaven. Two guardian figures, carved in low relief on either side of the entrance, watch over this threshold with expressions of benevolent protection. Passing through this doorway, we enter what can only be described as a chamber of sacred preparation, a space where the pharaoh comes to purify himself before the most important rituals of his reign. This room represents the intersection of the physical and spiritual worlds, a place where the human aspects of the ruler are temporarily set aside to allow the divine nature to manifest more fully. The chamber is circular in design, its domed ceiling painted to represent the night sky with incredible astronomical accuracy. Every star visible from Egypt has been mapped and painted in its proper position, creating a three-dimensional representation of the cosmos that surrounds the pharaoh as he prepares for his sacred duties. The constellations are picked out in gold and silver, their patterns telling the stories of the gods and serving as a constant reminder of the cosmic forces that the pharaoh must harmonize through his reign. At the center of the chamber stands a pool carved from a single block of alabaster, its translucent stone walls allowing the warm glow of oil lamps placed beneath the water to illuminate the entire basin from within. The water in this pool is not ordinary river water but sacred water that has been blessed by the high priests and infused with essences that promote spiritual purification. The temperature is perfectly maintained through a system of hidden channels that bring warm water from springs heated by the earth's own inner fire. Around the edge of the pool, small alcoves contain various items needed for the purification rituals, vessels of precious oils, cloths of the finest linen, and incense burners that release fragrant smoke to purify the air. These objects are not merely functional but are themselves sacred artifacts, created by master craftsmen who understood that their work would become part of the divine rituals that maintain cosmic order. The walls of the chamber are lined with niches containing statues of the gods who protect and guide the pharaoh. These are not the massive temple statues that impress through their size, but intimate, beautifully crafted figures that invite personal communion and prayer. Each statue is carved from precious stone and positioned to catch the light in ways that seem to bring them to life, their eyes appearing to follow and bless all who enter their presence. Soft cushions and low stools provide comfortable seating for the various stages of the purification ritual, their placement carefully calculated to create the most harmonious relationship between the pharaoh and the sacred space. The cushions are covered in silk that has been dyed to match the colors of the painted ceiling, creating a visual unity that reinforces the spiritual connection between earth and heaven. The air in this chamber is perfumed with a blend of sacred incenses that have been precisely formulated to promote spiritual clarity and divine connection. Frankincense and myrrh form the base of this mixture, but they are enhanced with other precious aromatics, sandalwood from distant India, cedar oils from Lebanon, and rare spices whose origins are known only to the high priests. The result is a fragrance that seems to lift the spirit and open the mind to higher perceptions. Hidden musicians provide a constant background of sacred sound, their instruments chosen for their ability to produce tones that resonate with the human spirit and promote states of deep meditation. Soft harps create cascading melodies that seem to flow like water, while flutes produce pure, clear notes that cut through the heavier incense-laden air like beams of light. The music is never intrusive or attention-grabbing but serves as a sonic foundation that supports and enhances the spiritual activities that take place in this sacred space. The lighting in the chamber is perhaps its most remarkable feature, carefully designed to create an atmosphere that transcends ordinary reality. Oil lamps are placed not only around the room but also beneath the water in the central pool, their flames creating patterns of light that dance across the curved walls and domed ceiling like living hieroglyphs. The overall effect is of being suspended in a space between earth and heaven, surrounded by gentle light that seems to emanate from the divine realm itself. As we settle into this sacred chamber, we become aware of the profound silence that underlies all the gentle sounds of water, music, and flickering flames. This is not the empty silence of an abandoned place, but the full silence of a space that is completely alive with spiritual presence. It is the kind of silence that invites inner listening, that opens the heart to receive the subtle communications that flow between the human and divine realms. The temperature in the chamber is perfectly controlled through the same ingenious system that heats the pool water, creating an environment that is neither too warm nor too cool but seems to exist in a state of perfect balance. This physical comfort supports the spiritual work that takes place here, allowing the pharaoh to focus completely on his inner preparation without any physical distractions. The overall design of the chamber reflects the Egyptian understanding that spiritual purification is not a harsh or punitive process but rather a gentle transformation that brings the soul into harmony with divine will. Every element of the space supports this understanding, creating an environment that naturally induces states of peace, clarity, and spiritual receptivity. In the gentle embrace of this sacred chamber, we witness the beginning of the pharaoh's most intimate spiritual practice, the ritual of purification that prepares the divine ruler for communion with the gods. This is not a hurried ablution but a sacred ceremony that transforms the very essence of the participant, washing away not merely physical impurities but the accumulated concerns and responsibilities that might interfere with perfect spiritual clarity. The pharaoh approaches the alabaster pool with the slow, measured steps of one who understands that every movement in this sacred space carries spiritual significance. His simple white linen robe, the color of purity and new beginnings, seems to glow in the soft light that emanates from beneath the pool's surface. This garment is not merely clothing but a ritual vestment, woven from flax grown in fields blessed by the priests and prepared by weavers who chant sacred formulas as they work their looms. Attendant priests, moving with the silent grace of longtime servants of the divine, assist in the preparation of the sacred waters. They pour precious oils into the pool, each one chosen for its spiritual properties as well as its physical benefits. Sweet almond oil, pressed from nuts grown in temple groves, softens and nourishes the skin while carrying the blessing of the goddess Hathor. Rose oil, distilled from petals picked at dawn when the dew still holds the night's dreams, brings peace to the heart and clarity to the mind. The water itself has been prepared through rituals that began at sunrise, when sacred vessels were filled from the Nile at the exact moment when the sun god Ra began his daily journey across the sky. This water has been blessed by the high priests, who spoke over it the ancient words that connect all earthly water to the primordial ocean from which all life emerged. It has been warmed not by fire but by heated stones that were blessed in the temple furnaces, ensuring that even the temperature of the bath carries spiritual significance. As the pharaoh prepares to enter the water, incense bearers move around the edge of the pool, their bronze censers releasing clouds of frankincense and myrrh that rise toward the painted stars on the chamber's ceiling. This smoke serves both to purify the air and to carry prayers upward to the gods, creating a visible connection between the earthly ritual and the divine realm. The sweet, resinous fragrance mingles with the warm, humid air rising from the pool to create an atmosphere that seems to exist halfway between earth and heaven. The moment of entering the sacred water is marked by a subtle change in the chamber's ambience. The oil lamps seem to burn more brightly, the painted stars on the ceiling appear to twinkle with renewed life, and the gentle music of harps and flutes takes on an even more ethereal quality. It is as if the entire chamber recognizes the sacred nature of this moment and responds by intensifying its own spiritual presence. The water embraces the pharaoh's form like liquid light, its warmth penetrating not just the skin but seeming to reach into the very bones and muscles, dissolving the tensions and concerns that accumulate even in a life dedicated to divine service. The alabaster walls of the pool glow from within, creating the impression that the pharaoh is bathing in liquid starlight, surrounded by a radiance that reflects his own divine nature. Attendant priestesses, chosen for their purity and trained in the sacred arts from childhood, assist in the ritual washing. Their movements are choreographed like a sacred dance, each gesture calculated to honor both the pharaoh's divine nature and the spiritual significance of the purification process. They pour water over his head and shoulders using vessels of silver and gold, their metal surfaces reflecting the lamplight in patterns that seem to write hieroglyphs of blessing in the air. The washing itself follows ancient patterns that have been preserved unchanged for countless generations, each step rooted in the understanding that physical purification must be accompanied by spiritual transformation. Sacred oils are massaged into the skin with circular motions that mirror the movement of the stars across the night sky, connecting the pharaoh's physical form to the cosmic cycles that govern all existence. The pressure is gentle yet firm, designed to release not just physical tension but the subtle knots of energy that can block the flow of divine inspiration. As the ritual progresses, the chamber fills with an even deeper sense of sanctity, as if the very air is becoming rarefied by the spiritual energies being invoked. The sound of water gently lapping against the alabaster walls of the pool creates a rhythm that seems to match the heartbeat of the earth itself, while the soft splashing and pouring sounds add their voices to the chamber's sacred symphony. The oils and essences used in the bath create their own subtle alchemy as they blend with the warm water. Lotus extract, sacred to the goddess Isis, brings visions of rebirth and renewal. Frankincense oil, precious as gold and twice as rare, opens the channels of communication between the human and divine consciousness. Myrrh, with its deep, earthy fragrance, grounds the spirit in the eternal wisdom of the earth while simultaneously lifting it toward celestial realms. Throughout the ritual, the pharaoh remains in a state of deep meditation, his breathing slow and rhythmic as he allows the sacred waters to work their transformation. His eyes are closed not in sleep but in the deep inner focus that allows the soul to commune directly with the gods. This is not a passive experience but an active participation in the cosmic forces that maintain the order of the universe. The priestesses continue their sacred work with infinite patience and reverence, understanding that they are not merely serving a mortal king but participating in the maintenance of divine order itself. Their own breathing synchronizes with the pharaoh's, creating a unified field of consciousness that enhances the spiritual power of the ritual. They move as if in a trance, guided by training that has become second nature and by the spiritual presence that fills the chamber. Steam rises from the warm water, carrying with it the blended fragrances of sacred oils and the pure essence of blessed water. This vapor seems to take on a life of its own as it rises toward the painted ceiling, swirling in patterns that mirror the movement of celestial bodies and creating brief, ephemeral hieroglyphs in the air before dissipating into the chamber's sacred atmosphere. The light that fills the chamber continues to shift and change as the ritual progresses, the flames of the oil lamps responding to the subtle energies being released by the purification process. Shadows dance across the walls in patterns that seem almost scripted, as if the chamber itself is participating in the sacred drama being enacted within its walls. As the ritual bath nears its completion, there is a palpable sense of transformation in the air. The pharaoh who will emerge from these sacred waters will be not just physically clean but spiritually renewed, his connection to the divine realm strengthened and clarified. This transformation is not visible to the physical eye but can be felt by all present as a subtle shift in the very quality of presence that emanates from the divine ruler. The final stages of the bathing ritual involve the application of the most precious oils and essences, saved for last because their spiritual potency is so great that they can only be fully received by a consciousness that has already been prepared through the earlier stages of purification. These final anointing oils seem to glow with their own inner light as they are poured from vessels of pure gold, their warmth and fragrance creating an almost visible aura around the pharaoh's purified form. As the sacred bath reaches its completion, the atmosphere in the chamber shifts once again, becoming even more rarefied and spiritually charged. The pharaoh emerges from the alabaster pool like a divine being materializing from liquid starlight, his form seemingly luminous with the spiritual energies that have been invoked through the purification ritual. Attendant priests stand ready with robes of the finest white linen, fabrics so pure and perfectly woven that it seems to float rather than merely drape around the divine ruler's form. The drying process itself becomes part of the sacred ritual, as the priests use cloths that have been blessed in the temple and perfumed with oils of sanctification. Each gentle touch is both practical and ceremonial, serving to remove moisture while simultaneously sealing the spiritual transformation that has taken place in the sacred waters. The linen cloth seemed to absorb not just water but any remaining traces of earthly concern, leaving the pharaoh's consciousness clear and perfectly attuned to the divine frequencies that govern the universe. Following the purification, the pharaoh is led to a raised platform in the center of the chamber, positioned directly beneath the painted representation of the pole star that serves as the fixed center around which all other celestial bodies revolve. This positioning is not accidental but deeply symbolic, representing the pharaoh's role as the stable center of earthly order around which all aspects of Egyptian civilization organize themselves in perfect harmony. The platform itself is carved from a single block of black granite, its surface polished to mirror smoothness and inscribed with hieroglyphs that tell the story of divine kingship from the very beginning of Egyptian history. The stone radiates a subtle warmth, heated by the same hidden channels that warm the bath water, creating a comfortable resting place that seems to pulse with the accumulated spiritual energy of countless generations of pharaohs who have performed this same ritual. Upon this sacred platform, cushions of silk and down provide perfect comfort for the meditation that follows. These cushions are arranged according to ancient geometric principles that create harmonious proportions and energy flows, their deep blue color echoing the painted night sky above while gold threads woven into their fabric catch and reflect the lamplight like earthbound stars. As the pharaoh settles into his meditation posture, the entire chamber seems to hold its breath in anticipation. The attendant priests and priestesses arrange themselves around the periphery of the chamber, their own breathing synchronized and their consciousness focused on supporting the divine ruler's communion with the gods. They understand that their role is not merely to serve but to participate in the maintenance of cosmic order through their unified spiritual practice. The incense that now fills the chamber is of the most precious varieties, blends that have been prepared according to formulas passed down through generations of high priests. The smoke rises in perfectly straight columns, undisturbed by any air currents, as if the very atmosphere recognizes the sacred nature of this moment and adjusts itself to support the ritual. The fragrance is intoxicating in the most literal sense, designed to alter consciousness and open the channels of divine communication. In this state of perfect preparation, the pharaoh begins the most sacred aspect of his daily practice, the direct communion with the gods that allows him to receive the guidance necessary for maintaining cosmic order. This is not prayer in the sense that ordinary mortals might understand it, but rather a direct linking of consciousness with the divine intelligence that governs all existence. The pharaoh's breathing becomes so subtle as to be almost imperceptible, his body perfectly still while his consciousness expands to encompass cosmic dimensions. The painted stars on the chamber's ceiling seem to respond to this deepening meditation, their colors becoming more vivid and their patterns more clearly defined, as if the pharaoh's spiritual elevation is somehow illuminating the celestial realm. The oil lamps burn with steady, unwavering flames, their light taking on an almost supernatural quality that seems to emanate from a source beyond the physical oil and wick. Around the chamber, the supporting priests and priestesses maintain their own meditative states, their consciousness serving as a network of spiritual energy that amplifies and supports the pharaoh's communion with the divine. They breathe in perfect unison, their heartbeats synchronized through years of training in the sacred arts, creating a unified field of awareness that extends far beyond the physical boundaries of the chamber. The gods themselves seem to descend into this sacred space, their presence felt as a subtle intensification of the chamber's already profound atmosphere. Though invisible to physical sight, their reality is unmistakable to the spiritually attuned consciousness. Each deity brings their own unique quality of divine energy. Ra, the sun god, fills the chamber with golden warmth. Isis, the divine mother, brings protective love. Thoth, the god of wisdom, contributes clarity of thought and perfect understanding. In this state of divine communion, the pharaoh receives the guidance that will shape his decisions and actions in the days to come. This guidance does not come in the form of words or visions but as direct knowing, an inner certainty about the right course of action that needs no external validation. The cosmic order reveals itself to his consciousness as a living reality that he can perceive and participate in directly. The chamber itself seems to expand during these moments of deepest communion, its walls becoming transparent to spiritual sight, revealing the vast cosmos that surrounds and interpenetrates the physical world. The pharaoh's consciousness journeys through these cosmic realms while his body remains perfectly still on the granite platform, traveling to receive teachings from the gods themselves in their celestial palaces. Time takes on a different quality during this sacred communion, moments stretching into eternities while hours pass like heartbeats. The pharaoh exists in a state outside of ordinary temporal experience, connected to the eternal now that is the true foundation of all existence. In this timeless state, he can perceive the patterns and cycles that govern earthly events, understanding how present actions will influence future outcomes across generations. The supporting spiritual practitioners continue their unified meditation, their consciousness serving as anchors that keep the pharaoh's spirit connected to the earthly realm while allowing him the freedom to journey through cosmic dimensions. They are trained from childhood in this sacred art, understanding that their role is crucial to the success of the pharaoh's divine communion and, by extension, to the maintenance of cosmic order throughout the Egyptian realm. As the communion deepens, the very atoms of air in the chamber seem to vibrate with increased frequency, creating an almost musical hum that is felt rather than heard. This spiritual resonance penetrates every cell of every being present, harmonizing their individual energy patterns with the cosmic frequencies that the pharaoh is channeling through his communion with the gods. The oils and essences that still perfume the air from the sacred bath blend with the rising incense to create new aromatic harmonies that seem to carry their own spiritual messages. Each breath brings not just physical sustenance but spiritual nourishment, as if the very air has been transformed into a substance that can feed the soul as well as the body. Through this profound communion, the pharaoh receives not only guidance for his earthly responsibilities but also spiritual sustenance that will maintain his divine nature throughout the challenges of ruling a vast kingdom. The gods pour their blessings into his consciousness like liquid light, filling him with the wisdom, compassion, and strength necessary to serve as their earthly representative. The painted walls of the chamber seem to pulse gently with sympathetic energy, the hieroglyphic scenes taking on new life and meaning as they are illuminated by the spiritual radiance generated through the divine communion. Stories of past pharaohs and their sacred relationships with the gods unfold in the flickering lamplight, creating a visual testament to the eternal nature of divine kingship. As the divine communion reaches its peak, a subtle shift occurs in the chamber's atmosphere, signaling the beginning of the most profound and transcendent phase of the pharaoh's spiritual practice. The air itself seems to shimmer with an otherworldly quality, as if the boundary between the physical and spiritual realms has become thin enough to allow divine energies to flow freely between dimensions. This is the moment when the pharaoh's consciousness, fully prepared through purification and communion, becomes a perfect conduit for the cosmic forces that govern all existence. The chamber responds to this heightened spiritual activity with phenomena that border on the miraculous. The painted stars on the domed ceiling begin to emit their own gentle radiance, not from any earthly source but from the spiritual energies that now flow through every atom of the sacred space. The constellations seem to move slowly across the painted sky, mirroring the actual movement of the celestial bodies above the palace, creating a perfect synchronization between the earthly chamber and the cosmic realm. On the granite platform, the pharaoh's form seems to glow with an inner light that reflects his complete attunement to divine consciousness. His breathing has become so refined that it is barely perceptible, yet each subtle breath seems to draw in starlight and release pure spiritual energy. His posture remains perfectly stable, rooted in the earth yet reaching toward heaven, embodying the cosmic axis that connects all levels of existence. The supporting priests and priestesses experience their own elevation of consciousness as they participate in this cosmic alignment. Their individual awareness merges into a unified field of spiritual energy that extends far beyond the physical boundaries of the chamber, creating a sacred mandala of consciousness that encompasses the entire palace complex and radiates outward to bless the surrounding land. In this state of perfect attunement, the pharaoh's consciousness expands to embrace not just the immediate cosmic realm but the vast reaches of space and time that contain all possible worlds and experiences. He perceives directly the golden threads of connection that link every star to every grain of sand, every human heart to every divine blessing, understanding in a way that transcends thought how the cosmic order maintains itself through infinite networks of loving interdependence. The chamber itself becomes a kind of cosmic temple, its physical structure serving as a focusing lens that concentrates the spiritual energies flowing through the pharaoh's consciousness. The alabaster pool continues to emit its subtle radiance, its warm waters now seeming to contain liquid light that connects to every body of water throughout the Egyptian realm. The sound of gently flowing water creates a constant background rhythm that matches the pulsing of cosmic forces through the chamber. Ancient wisdom traditions speak of moments when the veil between worlds becomes so thin that divine beings can manifest directly in physical reality, and this appears to be such a moment. Though invisible to ordinary sight, the presence of the gods fills the chamber with a tangible spiritual density that affects every sense and sensation. The air becomes almost thick with divine blessing, each breath a communion with celestial consciousness. The hieroglyphs on the chamber walls seem to write themselves anew in the shifting patterns of light and shadow, creating a living scripture that tells the story of cosmic evolution and the pharaoh's role in maintaining its perfect unfoldment. These moving symbols contain layers of meaning that would take scholars lifetimes to decipher, yet the pharaoh understands them instantly through direct spiritual perception. As this celestial alignment deepens, time itself seems to slow and eventually stop, creating a bubble of eternal present moment within which infinite wisdom can be received and integrated. Past and future collapse into a single point of pure awareness, allowing the pharaoh to perceive the eternal patterns that govern all temporal existence. In this timeless state, he can see how every decision and action ripples through the fabric of reality, affecting countless beings across vast spans of time. The supporting spiritual practitioners find their own consciousness lifted to unprecedented heights of clarity and peace. Though they maintain their supportive role, they are also blessed recipients of the cosmic energies flowing through the chamber. Their faces reflect an inner radiance that speaks of their participation in divine consciousness, their entire being serving as earthly vessels for celestial light. The incense that fills the chamber has long since transcended its merely aromatic function, becoming instead a visible manifestation of prayer ascending to divine realms. The smoke columns no longer rise in simple straight lines but weave complex patterns that mirror the sacred geometry underlying all creation. These aromatic offerings carry with them the devoted consciousness of all who participate in the ritual, delivering their unified prayers directly to the heart of divine reality. In this state of perfect alignment, the pharaoh receives revelations that will guide not only his immediate decisions but the long-term direction of Egyptian civilization itself. These are not mere insights or intuitions but direct downloads of cosmic wisdom that become permanently integrated into his consciousness. He understands with perfect clarity how to maintain the delicate balance between order and change that allows a civilization to thrive across millennia. The chamber's oil lamps burn with flames that seem to contain the essence of stars, their light no longer merely illuminating the physical space but revealing the spiritual dimensions that interpenetrate every atom of matter. The dancing flames create patterns that tell stories of cosmic creation and dissolution, of the eternal cycles that govern all existence, and of the pharaoh's unique role in maintaining harmony between celestial and terrestrial realms. Through this profound alignment with cosmic consciousness, the pharaoh experiences directly the love that underlies and motivates all divine activity. This is not sentiment or emotion but the fundamental force that holds the universe together and guides its evolution toward ever greater expressions of beauty, truth, and goodness. Understanding this love transforms his approach to kingship from a burden of responsibility into a joyful participation in cosmic creativity. The supporting practitioners feel this love flowing through them as well, their hearts opening to embrace not only the pharaoh they serve but all beings throughout the realm and beyond. Their meditation becomes a transmission of blessing that radiates outward through the palace, through the city, across the entire land of Egypt, and ultimately to the furthest reaches of creation itself. As this phase of the sacred practice continues, the boundary between individual consciousness and cosmic awareness dissolves completely. The pharaoh experiences himself not as a separate being receiving divine guidance but as a unique expression of the divine intelligence itself, perfectly designed to serve the cosmic purpose in his particular time and place. This realization brings with it a profound peace that transcends all earthly concerns and anxieties. The chamber resonates with harmonic frequencies that seem to originate from the music of the spheres themselves, creating an audible manifestation of cosmic order that penetrates every cell and molecule within the sacred space. This celestial music harmonizes all the various sounds within the chamber into a unified symphony that supports and enhances the spiritual transformation taking place. In the profound depths of cosmic communion, where consciousness has expanded to embrace the infinite reaches of divine reality, there comes a moment when the natural rhythm of spiritual practice begins to guide awareness gently back toward earthly concerns. This return is not an abrupt departure from the transcendent state but rather a gradual and graceful descent that maintains the blessings and insights received while gradually re-engaging with the physical world and its responsibilities. The first sign of this sacred return is a subtle shift in the quality of light within the chamber. The supernatural radiance that has filled the space during the deepest phases of communion begins to soften and blend more harmoniously with the warm glow of the oil lamps. The painted stars on the ceiling retain their ethereal beauty but no longer seem to pulse with their own inner light, instead reflecting the more gentle illumination of earthly flames with renewed clarity and peace. The pharaoh's breathing, which had become so refined as to be almost imperceptible during the height of cosmic alignment, begins to deepen gradually, each inhalation bringing more of the chamber's perfumed air into his lungs while each exhalation seems to anchor the divine energies he has received more firmly into his physical form. His posture remains perfectly stable on the granite platform, but there is a new quality of presence, as if he is now serving as a living bridge between heaven and earth. The supporting priests and priestesses, their consciousness still unified in the sacred mandala of awareness they have maintained throughout the divine communion, begin to experience their own gentle return to more ordinary states of consciousness. Yet they carry with them the profound peace and clarity they have shared, their faces still radiant with the inner light that comes from participation in cosmic awareness. Their breathing synchronizes with the pharaohs as they all make this sacred journey from transcendence back to engagement with earthly reality. The chamber itself seems to adjust to this transitional phase, the spiritual energies that have filled the space settling into a more stable and sustainable pattern. The incense continues to rise in graceful columns, but the smoke now moves more naturally, no longer forming the complex geometric patterns that appeared during the deepest phases of divine communion. The fragrance remains rich and spiritually elevating, but it now serves more to maintain the sacred atmosphere than to induce further expansion of consciousness. As awareness gradually returns to the physical realm, the pharaoh becomes more acutely sensitive to the various sensory experiences within the chamber. The warmth radiating from the granite platform beneath him feels like a loving embrace from the earth itself, grounding the cosmic energies he has received and helping to integrate them into his physical being. The silk cushions supporting his form seem to adjust to his renewed presence, providing perfect comfort for this transition phase. The sound of water flowing through the hidden channels within the chamber walls becomes more prominent as earthly awareness returns, its gentle rhythm serving as a natural focus that helps to stabilize consciousness at the intersection of spiritual and physical reality. This flowing water seems to carry with it the blessings received during the cosmic communion, distributing divine energy throughout the palace complex and beyond into the surrounding land. The painted walls of the chamber, which had seemed to pulse with living light during the height of spiritual activity, now appear more stable yet still magnificently beautiful. The hieroglyphic scenes retain their sacred meaning but no longer seem to move and change before the observer's eyes. Instead, they serve as permanent reminders of the eternal truths that have been experienced and integrated during the divine communion. The oil lamps throughout the chamber burn with steady, peaceful flames that provide perfect illumination for this phase of return and integration. Their light reveals the exquisite beauty of the chamber's decoration while also creating gentle shadows that add depth and mystery to the space. The interplay of light and shadow creates a visual rhythm that supports the natural pulsing of consciousness as it stabilizes in its new, elevated state. As the pharaoh's awareness becomes more focused on the immediate environment, he begins to sense the presence of his attendants more distinctly. Their devoted service throughout the long ritual has been invisible and unobtrusive, yet their loving support has been an essential element in creating the conditions necessary for such profound spiritual experience. Their own consciousness, elevated through participation in the cosmic communion, now radiates a peaceful joy that adds to the chamber's atmosphere of sacred satisfaction. The integration of cosmic wisdom into earthly awareness is a delicate process that requires its own form of spiritual artistry. The insights and revelations received during divine communion must be translated into practical understanding that can guide the pharaoh's decisions and actions in the physical world. This translation occurs naturally as consciousness settles back into its more familiar patterns while retaining the expanded perspective that comes from direct contact with divine reality. The chamber's atmosphere continues to support this integration process, its every element designed to facilitate the smooth transition between transcendent and ordinary states of consciousness. The temperature remains perfectly balanced, neither too warm nor too cool, creating physical comfort that allows all attention to focus on the subtle inner processes of spiritual integration. The gentle air circulation carries away any stagnant energies while bringing in fresh vitality that supports the renewed engagement with earthly existence. As this phase of the practice continues, there is a growing sense of completion and satisfaction that fills the chamber like a gentle blessing. The cosmic communion has achieved its purpose, providing the pharaoh with the spiritual nourishment and divine guidance necessary to fulfill his sacred responsibilities. The wisdom received will influence his decisions in ways both subtle and profound, ensuring that his reign continues to maintain the cosmic order that keeps Egypt prosperous and peaceful. The supporting practitioners begin to show subtle signs of their own return to more ordinary consciousness, their synchronized breathing gradually becoming more individual while still maintaining a harmonious rhythm that reflects their shared spiritual experience. Their faces retain the peaceful radiance that comes from participation in divine consciousness, but they now show signs of renewed alertness to their immediate surroundings and responsibilities. The pharaoh himself begins to display a new quality of presence that reflects the successful integration of cosmic and earthly awareness. His form remains perfectly still in meditation posture, but there is now a sense of conscious choice in this stillness rather than the absorbed transcendence that characterized the earlier phases of practice. He embodies the ideal of conscious leadership, fully aware of both divine guidance and earthly circumstances. The incense that continues to perfume the chamber air takes on a more grounding quality as the ritual moves through this transitional phase. While still spiritually elevating, the fragrance now serves more to maintain the sacred atmosphere than to induce further expansion of consciousness. The smoke patterns become more natural and flowing, no longer forming the geometric mandalas that appeared during the height of cosmic communion. This phase of return and integration is itself a sacred practice that requires its own form of spiritual skill and attention. The art lies in maintaining connection to the transcendent insights while gradually re-engaging with the practical concerns of earthly existence. Too rapid a return can cause the loss of precious spiritual understanding, while too slow a return can leave consciousness ungrounded and unable to function effectively in the physical world. As the sacred practice reaches its natural conclusion, a profound transformation occurs in both the chamber's atmosphere and the quality of consciousness that pervades the space. The cosmic energies that have been flowing through the room during the divine communion begin to settle into a more peaceful and restful pattern, like a gentle tide that slowly recedes while leaving behind treasures of wisdom and blessing on the shore of awareness. The pharaoh's form, still maintaining its perfect meditative posture on the granite platform, begins to show the first subtle signs of transition toward rest. His breathing, which has served as a bridge between earthly and cosmic consciousness throughout the ritual, now takes on an even gentler rhythm that naturally guides his awareness toward the healing depths of sacred sleep. Each inhalation draws in the chamber's blessed atmosphere, while each exhalation releases any remaining tension or concern into the loving embrace of the divine forces that continue to watch over this sacred space. The oil lamps throughout the chamber begin to burn lower, their flames gradually diminishing not through any lack of fuel but as if responding to the natural ebb of spiritual activity that accompanies the approach of sacred rest. The light they provide becomes softer and more golden, creating an atmosphere of twilight peace that invites the soul to release its hold on waking consciousness and surrender to the restorative embrace of divine sleep. The supporting priests and priestesses, their own consciousness still elevated from participation in the cosmic communion, begin to move with even greater silence and reverence as they prepare to maintain their vigil through the pharaoh's sacred rest. They understand that sleep, for one who serves as the earthly representative of the gods, is not merely a biological necessity but a continuation of spiritual practice in a different form, a time when consciousness can process and integrate the divine teachings received during waking communion. The painted stars on the chamber's domed ceiling seem to welcome this transition toward sleep, their colors becoming deeper and more soothing while their patterns suggest the natural progression from waking awareness through the various stages of consciousness toward the profound depths of regenerative rest. The constellations painted there serve as guides for the journey into sleep, their ancient wisdom offering protection and blessing for the pharaoh's consciousness as it releases its grip on earthly concerns. The granite platform beneath the pharaoh continues to radiate its subtle warmth, but this warmth now takes on a more nurturing quality, like the loving embrace of the earth itself welcoming its divine child into rest. The smooth stone seems to pulse gently with accumulated earth energies that rise up to support and cradle the pharaoh's form, while the silk cushions adjust themselves to provide perfect comfort for the transition into sleep. The sound of water flowing through the chamber's hidden channels becomes even more soothing as consciousness prepares for rest, its gentle rhythm serving as a natural lullaby that guides awareness away from the complexities of waking thought toward the simple, peaceful rhythms of regenerative sleep. This flowing water carries with it the blessings of the sacred bath and the energies of divine communion, ensuring that even in sleep the pharaoh remains connected to the cosmic forces that guide and protect his reign. The incense that continues to perfume the chamber air takes on an even more calming quality, its aromatic molecules carrying substances that naturally promote peaceful sleep while maintaining the spiritual protection that surrounds the divine ruler. Lavender and sandalwood blend with the frankincense and myrrh to create a fragrance that soothes the nervous system while keeping the subtle energy centers open to receive divine blessing even during sleep. As the pharaoh's consciousness begins its natural descent toward sleep, his awareness of the chamber's physical details becomes softer and more dreamlike, yet the sense of sacred protection and divine presence only grows stronger. The chamber seems to wrap itself around his form like a cocoon of spiritual protection, ensuring that his sleep will be undisturbed by any negative influences and filled instead with healing dreams and continued communication with the divine realm. The transition from waking meditation to sacred sleep is so gradual and natural that it feels like floating on gentle currents that carry consciousness effortlessly from one state to another. There is no struggle or effort involved, only a sweet surrender to the natural rhythm of spiritual practice that encompasses both active communion and passive receptivity to divine blessing. The chamber's atmosphere becomes increasingly hushed and reverent as the pharaoh's breathing deepens and slows, indicating his successful transition into the first stages of regenerative sleep. The attending priests and priestesses adjust their own energy to match this new phase, their consciousness serving as protective guardians for the pharaoh's sleeping form while their gentle prayers create an invisible barrier against any disturbance. The painted walls of the chamber seem to soften and blur slightly as consciousness releases its sharp focus on physical details, yet the stories they tell become even more meaningful as they speak directly to the dreaming mind. The hieroglyphic scenes of divine communion and cosmic order serve as programming for the pharaoh's sleeping consciousness, ensuring that even his dreams will contribute to the maintenance of cosmic harmony and the reception of divine guidance. The oil lamps continue their gentle dimming, their flames becoming smaller and more intimate while still providing enough light to maintain the sacred atmosphere. The patterns of light and shadow they create on the chamber walls become softer and more hypnotic, like visual lullabies that encourage the deepening of sleep while maintaining the spiritual protection that surrounds the divine ruler. As sleep deepens, the pharaoh's consciousness begins to journey through the realm of dreams, but these are not ordinary dreams. Instead, they are sacred visions and divine communications that continue the work of spiritual communion in the language of symbol and metaphor that speaks directly to the soul. The chamber itself seems to participate in this dreaming process, its spiritual energies supporting and enhancing the pharaoh's reception of divine teaching through the medium of sacred sleep. The sound of breathing in the chamber becomes increasingly peaceful and rhythmic, with the pharaoh's deep, slow breaths setting the tempo for the entire space. The attending priests and priestesses synchronize their own breathing with his, creating a unified field of peaceful consciousness that envelopes the sleeping divine ruler in layers of protective blessing and supportive spiritual energy. The temperature in the chamber remains perfectly balanced throughout the transition into sleep, the hidden channels that bring warm water through the walls ensuring that the pharaoh's physical form remains comfortable while his consciousness journeys through the various levels of sleep toward the deepest regenerative states. This physical comfort supports the spiritual work that continues even during sleep, allowing complete relaxation without any distraction from bodily discomfort. As the sacred sleep deepens further, the chamber seems to expand its protective embrace beyond the physical walls to encompass the entire palace complex and the land beyond. The pharaoh's sleeping consciousness becomes a beacon of peace and divine order that radiates blessing throughout the realm, ensuring that his sacred rest benefits not only his own spiritual development but the welfare of all his people. The flowing water in the chamber's channel seems to carry these blessings outward through hidden connections that link the palace to the Nile and through the great river to every corner of the Egyptian realm. Even in sleep, the pharaoh fulfills his cosmic function as the mediator between divine and earthly realms, his peaceful rest becoming a source of harmony and prosperity for the entire civilization. The final stage of this sacred sleep journey brings consciousness to the deepest levels of regenerative rest, where the accumulated wisdom and blessings of the day's spiritual practice can be fully integrated into the pharaoh's being. The chamber maintains its vigilant protection throughout this profound sleep, its every element working in harmony to ensure that the divine ruler's rest is complete, peaceful, and filled with continued communion with the gods who guide his reign through the eternal cycles of cosmic order and earthly responsibility. In this deepest sleep, surrounded by the loving protection of the sacred chamber and the devoted service of spiritual attendants, the pharaoh rests as both human being and divine representative, his consciousness journeying through realms of infinite wisdom while his physical form recovers and regenerates in preparation for another day of sacred service to the cosmic order that maintains the peace and prosperity of ancient Egypt. The chamber itself settles into its own form of sacred rest, its spiritual energies stabilizing into patterns that will maintain their protective and nurturing influence throughout the long hours of the night, ensuring that when dawn arrives and the sun god Ra begins his daily journey across the sky, the divine pharaoh will awaken refreshed, renewed, and ready to continue his eternal service as the living bridge between heaven and earth.